All right, we are live, and we had a little bit of a delay. We had some technical difficulties, but we are here now, and we have the one and only Mark Coleman here for us today. UFC legend, the first ever heavyweight champion. He is a Hall of Fame UFC MMA legend, UFC and Pride he competed in, and we're going to talk all about it. He has overcome a lot in his life lately. I've done my research on him, and I'm just so excited to have you here. So thank you for coming, and how are you doing, Mark?
Thank you. I've never been better. Just frustrated I couldn't get on this a little bit, but no, life is good. I'm happy. I'm at peace.
No,
everything's
awesome.
great.
Turn your camera sideways, the other direction, like turn it sideways, so we can get more. So that we can get more of you. We're gonna get these. We're gonna get the technical stuff down. There we go. Okay. Or just leave it like it is. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay, cool. Now we have more. We have more Mark in front of us. Okay, so Mark, I am just
hold on. I'm trying to fix.
You could keep fixing that while I talk about you a little bit, okay? There we go.
All right. We got it now. Is that good?
That's good.
Oh, shit.
You know what I said to Mark? You know what I said when we were trying to figure out how to get him in here? I said, look, he has survived a burning house. He has saved his parents. There's nothing this man can't do, okay? So I'm not even worried about it. I mean, what's a little delay in a live show and little phone falling here and there, right?
I'm sorry.
Do it the way it was. Just do it straight up and down. This is hilarious. Just have it straight up and down the way it was. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Mark, while you're figuring that out.
We're good. Does that work?
Yeah. There we go. Yes.
Is this good?
This is perfect. This is perfect.
You can hear me?
You're making me laugh. Or you should be a comedian too, by the way. Is that one thing you haven't checked off your list?
Oh my gosh.
Mark.
I'm not home. I'm not home. I'm at somebody else's house.
That's okay.
Hold on.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Okay.
How's that?
Okay. It's like you're giving your phone a ground. It's like you're giving your phone a ground and pound.
I think I got it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. All right.
All right.
Okay. So, I know all about your history. I want to talk all about it. And I also want to know your opinion about some of the current generation, like rules and, athletes. I want to know so much from you. We may even have to do this in 2 parts because before we get to all of that, I want to start off by talking to you about some of the recent things that you've overcome, because I know you've talked about it a lot, but I still think that, every audience is a little bit different, and it's just good to hear because it's so inspirational. But the first event that happened to you was your heart attack, right?
Well, that's about 5 years ago now. So that was a long time ago. During my heavy drinking days, heavy smoking, rock bottom. But yeah, I had a heart attack. I think I had it at about 7:00 at night.
Mm-hmm.
I was staying in an extended stay hotel for over a year, doing nothing good at all, just drinking, and secluded myself from everybody. But then I had something happen at 7:00, and I laid down in the bed. I laid down and I couldn't get comfortable. And at about 2 a.m., I called my daughters and, I told them something's not right. And they demanded I go to the hospital. So I jumped in the car, drove to the hospital, and sure enough, it was a pretty big heart attack. Fully clogged artery. The artery was the biggest artery the doctors have ever seen, too big for any kind of stent or anything, but they got in there and they're trying to poke through it and get the clog unclogged. They couldn't do it for like an hour. They sent me back up to my room, and they weren't sure what they were going to do. But then overnight, my levels of something got worse. So in the morning, they went back in, and they were able to crush through it. And I felt the immediate relief when they got through. And I didn't get no stent or anything, but here I am.
Oh my gosh. Your last fight was in 2010, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so your last fight was in 2010. You and Randy Couture, who were two Hall of Fame legends, for the first time ever in a match. And that being your last fight, it sounds like maybe because I mean, I'm an athlete too, and I know like that's your identity. And if that's your identity for so long, it's like, what's next, right? So after your last fight, I just want to know what was going through your head, and if there was something that you felt like there was like a hole that was missing that kind of sparked your, kind of going down that bad path.
Well, that was my absolute worst fight of my whole career. I had real short notice on it. I wasn't prepared. I tried to fool myself and act like I was prepared, but while in the cage, and when they introduced Randy, and he came in, he's going to put me in a stranglehold, baby. I just felt the confidence leaving, and then when he walked into the cage, I looked at him, and that was by far my worst fight ever. I did nothing, but and yes, I got cut afterwards. I'm 44, and I wasn't finished. I wasn't finished. I just didn't have a good camp. I was still feeling great, except my hips were really bad, in pain. But just get a little therapy. You keep grinding on. But my doctor had told me that I needed a hip replacement, and he made it look like it was an emergency. I think he wanted me out of the fight game. And I don't listen to anybody ever, but for some reason I didn't question him. I listened, I got the surgery, but then afterwards I realized I didn't need it. And yes, I was very angry, lost, and I was an alcoholic my whole career pretty much. I'm not happy with my career at all. When I did train, I won. When I didn't, it was very obvious. But I just, once I got to surgery, I kind of knew it was over. And I just started picking up on my drinking, and there was no training for these fights is what kept me from being a hardcore alcoholic. Because I had to train, but once there was no training needed, I just never stopped, and it just picked up, and it lasted about 10 years, so 2020, I was at rock bottom.
Oh gosh, I could see that. As an athlete myself, like I know how, you have like the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I feel like, having that out of your life, it's just such a difficult time for anyone to deal with, for anyone to go through, but
just everything was, alcohol is not the disease. Alcohol, it covers up the problem, and the problem was in my mind mentally, and alcohol was the medicine.
Right.
But I wasn't happy. I didn't like myself, and I had no control over alcohol. It controlled me, and thank God my friend stopped over at the hotel I was staying in, and it was the most disgusting thing he's ever saw. The room, nobody had been in that room for over a year, no maids, nothing, and it was a disaster. I was a disaster. I was fat. I didn't shave. I didn't shower. I wasn't living life. I didn't want to die. I just wasn't living.
Oh my gosh, Mark, that's
Then
horrible.
he walked in, and he asked me if I was trying to kill myself, I said, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew things were going to get better, but he talked me into checking into rehab. And I don't know how he did that, but he did it. And that was by far the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
They helped me learn how to live life sober. They helped me save my life, but I saved my own life. I'm proud.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry right off the bat. Well, you talk about this a lot. I mean, it's a running theme in your social media and what you share. Like, you really stand behind this a lot. Looking at your career, though, I mean, you only the battles that you face, because as a fan from the outside looking in, honestly, like, you are just a legend to me. I mean, I just see you as somebody who has done so much for the sport, for just in general, just as a pioneer of MMA. I mean, just looking back to your first fight ever was with the UFC in 1996, right?
Yeah.
And you fought before they even had weight classes. I think for a year you fought. The first fight was my favorite. It was the one you did with Don Fry.
That was the third fight of the night, though.
That was the third fight of the night, but that was
Yeah.
the most. That was an incredible historical fight. And then obviously everybody knows Mark Coleman is here. Like, who the heck is this guy, right? But the thing that's cool about that era that you experienced is that there weren't weight classes yet. And then when there was a weight class, you were the first ever in 1997, the first ever heavyweight UFC champion. At the time, the fact that you were basically making history in the UFC, did that sink in the moment, or is it kind of hitting you now?
No, it really did, because I knew the importance of being the first. And it was, back then I just wanted, to be remembered and have a legacy and all that. So, I mean, it was supposed to take place in New York City. Then the night before we got canceled.
Yeah.
The owners rented out 2 jets. We flew to Alabama, got in at about 4 a.m. And I didn't care if it was in a warehouse or anything. I just knew I needed to fight Dan Severn, because, the first is special. Nobody remembers the second. Nobody really remembers who beat me after that. So, I knew how big it was, but I knew at the time that a strategic fighter, and when I did throw the headbutts, I placed them. I timed them, made sure I used the hard part of my head instead of the soft part of the face. It really wasn't fair. It wasn't fair at the time, because my wrestling was very elite, and I had to, every time I got the mic, I promoted wrestling, because it was important for me to give wrestling credit. And now everybody pretty much agrees.
Yes.
Well, I say, if you can't wrestle, you can't fight. And it's that simple. You really can't. And now wrestling is the elite martial arts. And really, it's still true. If you can't wrestle, you're in big trouble in there.
Yeah.
It totally controls where the fight takes place.
Oh my gosh, for sure. I mean, if you can, do a takedown on somebody, or do a reversal on somebody, you pretty much own the fight. You know what I mean? I also think that if you're doing something consistently every single time you enter the ring, obviously there's strategy there. I mean, if you're able to repeat it again and again and again, then that's not a wild and, unstrategic method. That obviously means that you've got strategy if you're able to repeat it over and over again. You know what I mean? So,
well, my thought going in is, I didn't think I had time to get great at the stand-up game. I was wrong. I could have got great at the stand-up game, and I feel like I could have dominated on my feet even, but I didn't think I had time to. I figured it'd take 10 years to get great, you know what I mean? But really, it don't take that long. And so I didn't put a lot of attention to that.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, I use wrestling exclusively, and then obviously violent ground and pound, not
Yeah.
lay and train. Going to violently ground and pound you with a lot of strategy. I felt like I used a lot of strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question for you. This is interesting. So, something that's I have a couple videos. This one is the every Mark Coleman finish ever. And this one is just like a compilation of you. But I have a question for you. This is interesting to me because when you won in 1997, it was UFC 12. Okay. We are now at UFC 311 coming up on it in January. Okay. Can you wrap your head around the fact that, from UFC 12, actually you were a part of UFC 10 in 1996, from UFC 10 all the way to now, we're at UFC 311. How does that, what does that feel like when you hear the numbers?
When I walked out of the cage after beating down Fry, and by the way, he was by far the toughest man I ever fought. Not the best fighter I've ever fought, but the toughest man I ever fought. I really almost had to kill him. And I really, about the 11-minute mark, you couldn't even recognize his face. And they weren't stopping it for some reason. And I was getting very concerned. But, I just kept going. They finally pulled me off. But as I'm walking back to the locker room, my head was telling me that this sport is going to be exactly what it is today. I thought it was going to be just what it is now. It's going to be the biggest and greatest sport in the world, and the whole world is going to love it because everybody loves combat sports. And so I'm not surprised at all. Dana White is the man. He runs the ship, and he's done a great job. And I just expected to keep getting bigger and bigger for a long time.
It's pretty amazing. It's amazing that you really were a part of paving that way. You're absolutely a part of history. And speaking of which, looking through some of the things that you have accomplished, you were recently awarded the Fighting Spirit, which is actually, that's the story that we're going to talk about, because I think that is you saving your family from the burning house. And you were also the Lifetime Achievement Award. So tell me about those awards, when you got presented with them, what the process of that is like, because that's pretty amazing.
I was just very surprised to even be up for an award. I hadn't gotten an award in a long time. So to be up for the award and then to actually win it was surprising because you get voted on, and there was a lot of big names up for the award, but it meant a lot to me. It was very special. Wrestling and fighting, it made me. It prepared me for this house fire. I mean, my whole life prepared me for this. But fortunately, I'd gotten sober 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then, I didn't work out for 10 years. I did nothing for 10 years. My whole body it was just a piece of shit. It was disgusting, fat. Nothing worked. My whole body ached.
Ask you about that.
Huh?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you had gone through all that before you saved your parents. But keep going.
I got sober in the first year and a half. It was brutally hard, and I was like wondering, man, it's going to be this hard the rest of my life because every day it consumed my mind. Something was missing. And then I struck a deal with Liver King. We're good friends. And 2 years ago, January 1st, he said, look, brother, he said, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. He goes, transform back into the Hammer, and we're going to do big things. And when he said that, I took off, and I never stopped. I mean, literally, I was training a couple of days. I did 19 hours a day straight, just nonstop. But I averaged at least 15 for over a year and a half. I never missed a day. I was obsessed, and everybody's like laughing. I got laughed at quite a bit. Who the fuck's laughing now? You know what I mean? I got laughed because I wasn't afraid to post on Instagram my disgusting body and everything, but it was funny. Oh, I mean, because I don't have many haters. My fans are the best, and I don't have many, but I created haters by starting to train again and posting the stories and getting laughed at that's all I needed. And I never missed a freaking day. And thank God, because everybody's like, why are you training so hard? Why don't you enjoy life? Sit down and relax. Well, sitting down and relaxing to me there's no enjoyment in life there. Maybe you guys should get the hell off the couch and do something, because everybody said, because I was going to do a celebrity boxing, I'm going to do something. I didn't know what, but finally I just started saying, I'm preparing and training for life.
Yeah.
Something big is going to happen. And thank God I did, because I would not have saved anybody that night. If I wasn't in the shape I was in, people would have died.
Mark, I feel like I'm about to get emotional. This is like so crazy, because it's almost like everything happened the way that it was supposed to in a way. You know what I mean? For you to dedicate so much time to get yourself not just back into shape, but it sounds like in incredible shape. It was like you were training for that moment, right?
I think so, because God's my man. He's great. He took away my obsession to drink.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me peace and happiness, and that's it. I was at my mom and dad's house. I don't go there often, and I was there for some reason. And at 4 a.m., my dog Hammer woke me up, and it was on. It was on rather quick, and I had to hustle. And if I wasn't in great shape, people die, and probably I die.
I mean, I know that you lost your dog, and I know that's so unfortunate. You have another Rottweiler now. You call him
King Martello.
King Martell. Yes.
Martello's hammer in Brazil. Martello means hammer in Brazil. So Hammer was my first dog ever.
Yeah.
And he was with me for 11 months, and he had a great life because he had no rules, and he loved it. He was a rebel, and he had a great life. He woke me up, and I got my parents out. I went back in to get him, and I was down on my knees, looking underneath the bed, and I couldn't find him. And at some point, I was probably in there for 10 minutes at this point. I sat up and took in a lot more smoke. All of a sudden, I fell off into the bed. I stood up and I almost fell down again. It was the scariest, ugliest sight I've ever seen, even though you can't see. You can see, but you can't see. Somehow I found a way. God guided me out of that house, and it was by far the highest of highs. But at the same time, I knew my dog was in there dying, and the lowest of lows for sure. But it's all good. It's all good now.
Yeah.
And then I had to get another dog quick.
I know this is really fresh for you because it did happen like less than a year ago, right? I mean, I think
8 months.
Yeah, it happened not that long ago. So you've told this story a lot, though, because as hard as it is for you to tell, and as much as it is probably painful for you to run through this series of events over and over again, it's an incredibly inspiring story. I mean, I heard it already a few times, and I'm still kind of at the edge of my seat listening to you tell the story again, because it gives people so much hope. The series of events, I can't even get over the series of events that your life had leading up to that moment, and just how everything went down, and just how heroic you already were looked at, but how truly heroic you were that night. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I know you had to have had some after effects. I mean, you were in a house full of smoke that had to affect you, right? So how did you recover from that?
Well, I got out. I was outside. I couldn't believe my parents were alive.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that I was fine. I thought I was 100% fine. I was coughing real hard, but I couldn't believe I wasn't hurt. But when the ambulance got there, as soon as the ambulance got there, I don't remember much after that. I remember laying down and telling the ambulance that I'm fine. I just want to go see my parents. And I think they put me to sleep. And then, yeah, they had to life flight me to the hospital. And then I was in a coma it got real bad. I would have died if I didn't get to the hospital. They never seen so much black smoke on somebody's lungs in their life. And fortunately, they had a machine that was able to clean a lot of it off. If they weren't able to get the smoke off, it would have been a long, long recovery. But they were able to do that. And, I remember waking up and every emotion you can imagine was going through my mind at the time. So I thought I was fine, but it was very close to being over. So,
oh my gosh. Wow. Whew. Oh my gosh. So what about your daughters? How were your daughters after that? When they found out, like you guys all obviously had some responding moments.
My daughters, they were the only ones at the hospital. They were there bedside with me for the 2 days. For the 2 days I was unconscious, but then I started getting better. I started recovering. They could see it, so they backed off whatever medicine they had me on. So now I'm still out, but now I can hear things, and I can hear my daughter's bedside, talking to me. And then they played a song, Fear is a Liar. And I remember hearing it. I remember fighting back the tears because I didn't want them to see me cry. But I remember one tear snuck out down my face. And
that's okay.
Because when I woke up, they asked me if I could remember talking to them. And I said, yeah, they didn't believe me. But then I told them that story. And well, now they knew I was listening to them. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was traumatized. I was for a couple weeks at least, maybe more. Mm-hmm. I was really afraid because I didn't want to die. And I was afraid of things that I wasn't afraid of before, like driving the car. I was like getting way off the road because I didn't want this car to swerve in and hit me. So I was just being real careful.
Yeah.
But then, then it took probably a couple months for my lungs to heal up. My eyes were burnt pretty good. My hand was burnt. But I told them to let me out of the hospital after 5 days. I said, I need to get out of here. So they let me out. But as I'm driving back to Columbus, something wasn't feeling good. My arm had the heart attack, so my arm was numb. Oh. And I told my daughters on the way back to Columbus that something ain't right. So they took me right to the hospital. It turns out I had pneumonia. I got pneumonia on top of it. So that was fine. I told them to let me out the next day too. And I just started healing up, and it didn't take long. You
sound like a really fun patient.
No, yeah. No, I just wanted out and get on with my life. And I actually went to the gym on that Monday. The Monday I got out and I went to the gym on Monday because that was the only days I ever missed. The only days in over a year that I missed, and it was eating me alive.
Yeah.
So I went to the gym on Monday and got going again.
Of course you did. You're telling your doctors, I'm a fighter. They're like, yes, sir, we know. A lot of people are. No, I really am a fighter. You don't understand. Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, you're back to training. Obviously, UFC is a huge passion of yours. You fought with, I have a quick question. You did fight for Pride between like 2000 to 2006, right?
Yeah.
And you fought also UFC from 1996 to 2010.
Yeah.
So what are you like? And you fought in both of those organizations at the same time. So what would you say is the biggest difference between the two?
Not too much, just a couple. But every rule that you have changes the whole sport. So over in Japan, you're allowed to knee people in the head on the ground, and that completely changes your defensive strategy. And for me, that was my go-to. Kneeing somebody in the head on the ground was my go-to. And then at the Pride Grand Prix, the night before the Grand Prix, first of all, they didn't want me to win that at all. They did not want me to win that at all. So I think they put these two rules in there just for me. They changed it from a 20-minute time limit to a no time limit. The finals was going to be a no time limit fight, which I visualized myself being in the finals against Igor Vovchanchyn.
Yeah.
And I figured, okay, and he's a savage killer. I didn't really see how I could finish this guy. And then they also said no knees to a grounded opponent. And that really shook me up because that was how I planned on finishing him.
Yeah.
Unless he's on his back. Then they said if he's on his back, you can knee him in the head, but it didn't make any sense. How are you going to get somebody on their back? And if you do knee him, they just got to belly down. But somehow I got him stuck in the corner, face up. And I had to think for a second if it was legal. And then I realized it was. And then, I just started blasting him with knees. And I didn't understand why he didn't belly down, but then somebody gave me the proper answer. When you're getting kneed in the head, Coleman, you're not thinking very straight. So I never knocked this guy out. 16 knees to the head. And finally he tapped. And that was my biggest win by far because he was undefeated Russian. That's what I was talking about. When I beat Severn, I knew there was tougher guys out there. And I knew it was going to be the Russians as well, Ukrainian to be exact. But yeah. And plus, I'm coming off 3 straight losses. Yeah. No excuses. But when I won the title, when I won the championship, my head got big and my drinking started taking over. And I lost 3 straight with injuries and that. So I went from the champ to the chump with no job. But then when I do train, I'm not going to get beat. So the Grand Prix was coming up, and I prepared for 9 months, and I absolutely knew I was going to win that. Nobody else did, but I was positive I was going to win that thing.
Yeah. You have like this just intense, just like fighting spirit. I could just feel it coming out of you right now. I mean, it's there. So right now you have 1 fake hip, I guess I'll say.
2.
Just 2. So both of them now. So you have 2. Okay. So I guess there's no UFC in your future, but you're still passionate about it. The current state of the of the organization, everything like that. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd actually love if we could I could bring you back and we can actually talk about some of the current fighters and stuff like that if you're open to it, because hearing from you and your opinions is absolutely invaluable. You know what I mean? But what do you think about the current state of the UFC, where we're at right now, heading into the UFC 311 in January?
It can't get any better. I mean, it's the number 1 greatest, fastest growing sport in the world. Dana's the leader, but his whole staff is amazing. The whole group, they're the best in the world, and I just continue to see it getting bigger and bigger because there's no end in sight. It's by far the greatest sport in the world. I'm a big fan. I follow it. Dana has been good to me. I love taking my daughters to the shows. That's my favorite thing to do. He hooks me up with ringside seats, and I just have a blast. I love it. And these fighters today, they're amazing. The sport has evolved. there's just so many people out there with coaches now.
Yeah.
I was my own coach. I didn't have any coaches.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's the way I wanted it. I didn't listen to people, so it wouldn't have helped if I did have a coach. But,
well, you know, when you started, there were no weight classes, and now I think there are 12 total, right? There's men and women now, which is also something that's really cool and unique.
Yeah,
it's not unique now, but it would have been unique then. So it is completely evolved.
The women are amazing.
Right.
I'm big fans of them women. Dana don't make too many mistakes, but when he said there won't be no women's fighting, he definitely was wrong, because these girls are savages, man. It's unbelievable. I'm big fans of many of them, but Potan Pereira, he's my favorite. He's I followed him before he even got in there, and then normally I'm a little skeptical of a guy that don't have no wrestling background, but I wasn't skeptical. For some reason, I just knew that guy was going to be a killer. After I seen him a couple of times, I knew he was learning wrestling, and I knew he was a special athlete. And he's a sober brother of mine. He's got like 8 years sober, so he was struggling as well. So I just love that guy. I love a lot of them fighters. I'm big fans of all of them.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm just going to extend the invitation now, and to all the fans watching this, probably I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I would love to have you back and talk about some of the fighters if you're open to it, because we, want to continue covering the UFC. It is such an incredible sport. MMA is such an incredible sport. I love it. I'm becoming a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of yours. So would you like to come back?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, and then next time we'll make sure we come on with no technical difficulties.
Well, I'll have my daughters to help me next time.
Oh, well, then there won't be any problems.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to give you the final words. What would you like to say to your fans and everyone who loves you and follows you? When I woke up from that fire, I figured it was just something I'm going to have to deal with my family and stuff. But as soon as I woke up, my daughters told me that the whole world had seen and heard about this story, and the whole world was praying for me. And it blew my mind. Even though I knew my fans were great, I just couldn't believe it, with the outreach of love. And it was special, because they've been so good to me, and hopefully I'm hoping they're good to me, because I've been good to them. I would never ever turn down a requested picture with me. I go out of my way to make people happy. And now that I'm sober, it's all about giving back, I realize. And now I help people lots, and my platform gives me the opportunity to help so many people struggling with mental health and addiction. And every day I reach out to people to motivate them. And there's only one way, only one chance you have, and that's turning yourself into rehab. Mm-hmm. And even then, if you do go to rehab, only about 4% of people that check into rehab follow the course. So it's brutally hard, and that's important to me to give back. But at the same time, I'm just motivating people to find peace, because it's the greatest thing ever. I lived in fear. I have no fear of anything anymore. And I just try to help people, because I know so many people are struggling, because I had everything in the world, but for some reason, I had everything I ever dreamed of. I just didn't realize it. And for me to struggle mentally, now I realize some people that weren't as blessed as me to get to do the things I got to do, I can imagine how hard it is for them. Mm-hmm. So I just want to help them, and I want to motivate people to get up off the couch
and get going, man. Because this country, people are dying. They're unhealthy. The food is nasty. The food is horrible. There's a lot of good food out there that's healthy for you, that tastes delicious, but people just choose to buy the processed stuff, and it's killing them. We're overweight, unhealthy, and that's why people are sad and depressed, I think. Yeah. Because once I started exercising, it made this sobriety thing so much easier, and now it's my new addiction. Even though I had it before, now I don't miss a day. And I love being, by the time I go to bed at night, if my whole body ain't sore, I'm not happy.
I can relate to that. Well, Mark, I just have to say that now that I know you, I can say to know you is to love you. You are an amazing person inside out. I'm so happy that we're connected. Don't go anywhere. Stay in the studio so I can say bye afterwards. But I want to tell everyone who's watching, thank you all for joining. WOLFpak is the official bag of the UFC. We love UFC, we love Dana White, and we love the pioneers of MMA like Mark Coleman. Well, there's no one really like Mark Coleman, let's be real. So until next time, we will see you all later.